All right. Today I want to try something a little bit different as we talk about Bible study and how to study the Bible. Chad did a great series not too long ago on how to study the Bible, but I want us to look at that a little bit more and maybe look at some tools that you may find helpful in your study. I want us to just, as an example, use 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And we're not going to be able to spend enough time in this session to really do a great in-depth study of this passage, but I want us to get an idea of the approach that we would use. And it's not going to be very different from what Chad was talking about, but I just want to bring in a few tools that you may or may not be aware of to see how you can use those. So, when we talk about studying a particular passage in the Bible, the first step is to read the whole book. Now, we're not going to do that in this 20-minute session, but what you would want to do to really understand 2 Corinthians chapter 3 as well as you can is to first read the whole book of 2 Corinthians. Because very often you're going to find some things explained in other parts of the book that you may miss if you only look at this one section. And so we want to read the whole book first. But then we can go back and read this particular passage. And so you find that the first steps in a study like this are simply reading. Now, what are some tools that can help you with the reading? Well, many of you will already know about this one. It's called Bible Gateway. That's the name of this website. BibleGateway.com is how you get there. And it's a very good website for simply reading the Bible. It has many, many different translations of the Bible available. So you can look at lots of different translations if you want to, especially in English. If we go back over here, you can look at the New American Standard or the Christian Standard or the English Standard Version. But we've been trying to stick primarily with the New King James in these studies. So that's what I have it set to here. Now, one thing you can do is this button here lets you add a parallel translation. So here you can read side by side the New King James and the New American Standard. So you can see what the differences are, and sometimes just reading it in different translations can help you to understand something a little bit better. What is the actual point being made? So that's something that can be helpful. You can close one of these by clicking that if you want to go back to just one translation. Another thing that you can do with Bible Gateway is you can actually listen to it. So if you want to listen to this chapter being read, you can click on this button here. And I'm not going to play it right now, but you have it available in different translations read by different people. And so you could listen to this New King James reading while you come over here and read it. So you can listen and read at the same time. That can be fairly helpful sometimes, and it can also help you with understanding how to pronounce certain words. Not that the readers always get it right either, but generally they're going to be pretty good at pronouncing the words. So that's one thing that can be helpful. But they also have this tool for page options here, where you can turn on cross-references or turn them off. I don't know what the default is. You can turn on footnotes. You can turn them off. You can turn on headings or you can turn them off. And in fact, when you're reading through these things, if you turn off everything and you just have the text, so not even verse numbers, that can be pretty helpful in just focusing on what it says. And those other things that are very helpful for certain purposes don't get in your way as you're reading. And then you can also print from here. So it brings you over to a page where it's printable, and you can print it without the verse numbers if you have a printer that you can print from. And then you can use that for some of the other methods of study where you can mark up the text and things like that we will talk about here in just a moment. All right, but there's some other websites that can also help you with the reading. Let's take a look at Bible.com. If you go to Bible.com, this is the ones that make a pretty decent program for your phone, an app for your phone called YouVersion. But their website also has quite a lot of usefulness to it. So you can just click on Bible up here at the top, and it brings you over to where you can read the Bible. You can change the font size over here. So if you want to make it bigger, you can do that. You can also listen to it, but right now I have it set to a Zulu translation. And so there's no recording for that. That's why it has that symbol there, and you can't click on it. But it has several different translations for Zulu. Also, if you go to change language, you'll find that it has Ndebele and isiXhosa and several translations for isiXhosa. If you go to change language and you go to Tshivenda, it has Tshivenda, and it only has the one translation, but it's there. You can read the Bible in Venda, and you can even do a parallel here, and you can have it in Venda on the one side, and you can change the language here, and you could have it in isiZulu on the other, or you can go to English, and they have many, many different translations of the English. Here you can see which ones they have audio recordings for if you want to listen to it being read. So if we want the New King James Version, we can put that over here, have the Venda translation here, the New King James over here. And so that can help you to find certain things to look at in the passage. So if we want to find it, because we have Venda as the primary translation here, it has the books in Tshivenda. And so we could go down to, let's see, 2 Corinthians chapter 3. And so here it is in Tshivenda and in the New King James side by side. If you want to get out of the parallel mode, you just click this exit parallel mode, and you're back to your primary translation. Okay, so that one is good because it allows you to see a number of the African translations and even put them side by side with the English if you find that helpful. Another one is the wordproject.org. So Word Project is apparently based out of China, but it has translations in a number of different languages. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll find Xhosa and Zulu. So if we go to the Zulu and we come over to 2 Corinthians, and we go up here to chapter 3, you'll find that you can actually listen to the isiZulu being read There's recording for the Bible in isiZulu. So I don't know which isiZulu translation this is, if this is a good one or not. You may ask Mzwandile or someone who knows those things a bit better than I do. But I find it interesting that you can get the audio recordings in isiZulu. You can even download it over here for each chapter that you want to listen to and play those back later. So if you find that helpful in your study, those tools are available to you. All right, now I want to go back to Bible Gateway. And up here in this, if you just go to the main page, when you come up here to this search box, you can either put in a word you're looking for, and it's very good for searching the Bible, but you can also just type in the passage that you're interested in, hit enter, and you go straight there. Now it remembers the settings that I put in there so you don't see the verse numbers. So I showed you where you could get a printable view just by clicking print. But you can also do some of your study here in this website if you choose to do that. I don't, but this is one way you could do it. The next step in the study, after you've read through the book, you've read through the passage, especially hopefully looking at the context of the passage as well, you go back and you read it again, examining words or ideas that are repeated or seem to have a lot of importance in the passage. So when we look at 2 Corinthians chapter 3, he says, "Do we begin again to commend ourselves, or do we need, as some others, epistles of commendation to you, or letters of commendation from you? You are our epistle, written in our hearts, known and read by all men. Clearly you are an epistle of Christ, ministered by us, written not with ink, but by the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of flesh, that is, of the heart. And we have such trust through Christ toward God, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as being from ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God, who also made us sufficient as ministers of the new covenant, not of the letter, but of the Spirit. For the letter kills, but the Spirit gives life. But if the ministry of death, written and engraved on stones, was glorious, so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the face of Moses because of the glory of his countenance, which glory was passing away, how will the ministry of the Spirit not be more glorious? For if the ministry of condemnation had glory, the ministry of righteousness exceeds much more in glory. For even what was made glorious had no glory in this respect, because of the glory that excels. For if what is passing away was glorious, what remains is much more glorious. Therefore, since we have such hope, we use great boldness of speech, unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face, so that the children of Israel could not look steadily at the end of what was passing away, but their minds were blinded. For until this day the same veil remains unlifted in the reading of the Old Testament, because the veil is taken away in Christ. But even to this day, when Moses is read, a veil lies on their heart. Nevertheless, when one turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. But we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. All right, so we read through that, and I'm sure you noticed that there were certain words that came up over and over again. And so we could start off with commend. There's commend ourselves. And when you highlight that word, you're able to assign it a color. You can favorite it, or you can put a note on it. But for our purposes here, all we really want to do is assign it a color. Now, for you to be able to save these things for later, you need to sign up for an account. I've never bothered with that because I don't really use this method. But there you see it's highlighted. And here we can see, okay, epistles of commendation. And you can give that the same color, but it's going to be a bit annoying. It's going to pop this up every time if you don't sign in. I don't really use this because there aren't very many colors available, but that is an option for you if you want to use it. But here's what I would recommend doing. Rather than using this website for that purpose, you can just highlight everything and copy it. So you can right click. If you don't do Control C, you can come up here to copy. And then you can put it into something like Microsoft Word. Make a new document here. It doesn't have to be Word. You can do this with any kind of text processing program, Google Docs, anything like that. But you can just paste it. So you can come up here and click paste. And here it is. Now it's copied the highlighting that we already did on the web page as well, which is fine. Once you start highlighting, if you choose a color, so let's say we've already started highlighting this, you can come up to this tool here called Format Painter, and you can click on that, and then you can just highlight the other words that are the same. Here, we can go back here to epistles or letters, and you can do different things. You can make it bold, you can change the color of the text itself, or you can highlight it. So if you want to do that one, you can also click on it, click the highlighter, and you can highlight these other words. And I would go ahead and probably put the italics back just so you're aware that's not a word that was originally in the Greek, but it's the idea that is present there. So you can click back on that, the Format Painter. You are our epistle, and so on. So you go through and you mark everything that is the same word or idea in the same way, so that you can start seeing the connections between them. Now here you see the idea of written not with ink, but by the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone. So you can make that a different color, or you can highlight it in different colors here. However you want to make it stand out from everything else. And then you can paint that wherever it talks about the same idea. So if you come down here and you see the ministry of death written and engraved on stones, okay. But when you start doing this, you also have to pay attention to the fact that sometimes it's not talking about exactly the same thing. Now, clearly, because these are in the same context and they're talking about similar wording, there has to be some kind of connection between them. But a lot of times people get confused in this passage, and they start thinking about what's being said up here at the beginning as part of talking about the Old Testament, which it talks about further down here. What's engraved on stones is the Old Testament law, in particular, the Ten Commandments. And up here, if you look carefully at the words, it says, "You are our epistle." So you can make that whatever color you want to make it stand out. So you are our epistle, written in our hearts, known and read by all men. Clearly, you are an epistle of Christ, ministered by us, written not with ink, but by the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of flesh, that is the heart. So what epistle is this? What is the writing? He says, you are the writing. You are our epistle. You are not written on tablets of stone, but on tablets of flesh, that is the heart. All right, so we have this idea of, and you can clarify that these things are clearly tied together by the wording here. The tablets of flesh means the heart. That's where they are written. Okay, so when you see that, okay, he's not talking about law up here. He's talking about themselves and how they live and how they are an epistle. What kind of epistle are they? What kind of letter are they? They're a letter of commendation for Paul and the others that have worked with them. Okay, so you can start highlighting these things. You can do all of this. You may actually prefer to print this out and do it with colored pencils or highlighters or something like that, rather than on the computer. But this is one way that you can do it and start making those connections. And because you're looking at it closely to make these connections, to highlight the words and the ideas that go together, it helps you look more closely at what's actually being said. All right, so we're going to stop there for now because our time is finished. But I hope that just looking at some of those tools will be helpful to you and might help you a little bit in your own studies. Thank you.